Hi, this is just a welcome to all new incoming students to the department. My name is Dr. Samuel Fairlamb, and I'm one of the social psychologists that we have here. I've actually been doing a lot of research recently, looking at applying social psychological ideas to the current ongoing crisis concerning the coronavirus. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my kind of area of research today and how it applies to what is going on around us right now. My area of interest is on our awareness of death, and more specifically how humans may hold a sort of unconscious fear of death. So the idea here is that human beings, due to the fact that they have enlarged forebrains that give rise to amazing cognitive capabilities, comes with a kind of significant drawback in the fact that we are aware of our own inevitable and uncontrollable demise. And whilst most people generally sort of dismiss the notion that they are fearful of death, what we argue in my area of research is that whilst we may not overtly say that we have a problem with our own death, at a kind of unconscious level, humans actually do hold quite a large number of existential-based concerns, and that we try to manage those problems on a continual basis. So obviously the area that I'm interested in has quite a large relevance to what is going on now in the pandemic, because our existential-based concerns have really kind of come a little bit to the forefront. Many people worldwide have unfortunately died from the pandemic quite tragically, but obviously we are bombarded right now with a lot of information about the threat of the coronavirus, the risk of death, how many people are dying. So right now is quite an interesting time from a kind of social psychological point of view, in how we go about managing these kind of death-related issues in our lives. And I just want to kind of outline to you certain ways that psychologists in my field have examined this issue about how people manage terror. And specifically, we'll apply it to the idea of how people manage the problem of death during the pandemic. So first and foremost, one way in which humans often manage the problem of death is just by merely denying that death is a problem for them. So one thing that people often do is display a remarkable unrealistic optimism about their prospects of survival. So one potential sort of aspect that we might consider stemming from the pandemic is people's willing to dismiss the pandemic as being an overreaction, for example, making comparisons to the flu. You may have already been exposed to some sort of familiar kind of themes in the news, certain people trying to dismiss the threat of the coronavirus. On the inverse, other people might very well engage in more protective-based measures, like, for example, social distancing, staying at home, and isolation that a lot of us have been encountering in the last sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And again, these kind of serve a similar kind of function in the sense that whilst denial, pushes thoughts of our own death outside of our kind of conscious awareness, these protective measures also do the same kind of job, where we can take certain measures that protect ourselves from the threat, and therefore we can continue about going our lives without worrying about it too much. And particularly in my area, it's that kind of issue that we focus on a lot, where once people have pushed these threatening thoughts outside of their actual conscious awareness, we're very interested about how people manage what we would call non-conscious thoughts of death. And in my area, what we basically examine very often is how people manage the problem of death on a very different level to a physical one. That is, we manage it often on a symbolic level, because this can outstrip our own actual physical existence. And so one way that people manage the problem of death is through belief systems that tell us how the world works, that provide the world with meaning and provide a sense of purpose. Another way that people might manage the problem of death is seeking to attain what we would call as psychologists a sense of self-esteem. And essentially what I mean by that is that we seek to live up to values that our belief systems promote. So one thing that people might try and do is increase their sense of engaging in behaviors that are culturally valued. Very finally, another area that people manage the problem of death is through relationships. Firstly, relationships straightforwardly provide sometimes offspring that can give us a sense that we can transcend the problem of death via children who share our name or genes. But also relationships also constitute an important part of self-esteem too. For some people, being close to others can make them feel valuable and valued. And so what my research particularly has been looking at recently is whether people would, in the current pandemic, have an increased desire for closeness. And more specifically, therefore, and what quite interestingly, would be whether that desire for closeness, therefore, means that people are more likely to violate social distancing measures because they want to desire and attain a sense of closeness. So that was just a kind of brief overview to my area of research, and I hope that you find it interesting and want to come seek me out at some point to talk a little bit more about it. I do teach third-year students the topic in more detail, and they do projects with me looking at these sort of ideas. For now, though, I just want to sort of leave you with a kind of good recommendation for you to start thinking about your own reading in terms of social psychology. There is a core textbook that we use on the Understanding Individuals and Groups module. It's the Hoggenthorn Social Psychology textbook. You can find it on Amazon. We also have copies in the library and then also an online version. So if you don't want to actually buy it, then you can obviously wait until you have access to our library resources to access it. Anyway, that's just it from me. I hope that you found that interesting, and I hope to see you in the next coming months, hopefully in person, not just online. Okay, thank you.